Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our briefing on the City of Philadelphia's response to gun violence. This is for press only. If you're not a member of the press, please log out and watch today's live stream on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook page or tune in on 900 AM or 96.1 FM WURD. We'll begin our briefing with remarks by Mayor Jim Kenney. Mayor, you have the floor.
Thanks, Dina. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I want to start out by addressing one of the latest cases of violence against our Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Just a few days ago, Wei Lin, a 28-year-old businessman, husband and father of 2 young girls, died after he was senselessly and cowardly punched in the head in Juniata Park while helping a delivery driver who had gotten into a minor car accident. This is the first known death in Philadelphia since the rise of AAPI hate nationally in recent months. Members of our community are filled with pain and grief. We are all devastated for Mr. Lin's family, and we know it's not the only violent act that's occurred. We recognize the trauma and fear inflicted on our Asian American and Pacific Islander community during these uncertain times. So let me be perfectly clear. There is no place for hate or violence in our city against our AAPI brothers and sisters, or anyone else for that matter. Our administration takes these unspeakable acts very seriously. We are working with the police and leaders from the AAPI community to address concerns and create safer streets for all. In the meantime, we encourage everyone to report any acts of hate or bias to the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations by calling 215-686-4670. That's 215-686-4670. An anonymous hotline is also available at 215-686-2856. 215-686-2856. You can report hate in your preferred language, and you have a right to request services in your own language at any time, and this includes 911 calls. The city is committed to keeping our vibrant AAPI community safe. We see you and we stand with you. Now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Outlaw for an update.
Good afternoon. With the summer months upon us, it is critical that we continue to work together with our community partners and city agencies to ensure that people are receiving the appropriate services that they need. On our end, we're working to ensure that the community remains safe. As I discussed a few weeks ago, we've coordinated our efforts with the Parks and Recreation Department, increased patrols around rec centers, and continue to partner with the MDO's office or the Managing Director's office on educational opportunities. Our districts and officers are also creating unique summer programming for our youth. The PPD has met with community members and other agencies to prioritize and find alternate funding sources to secure ways to improve safety around rec centers. As an example, the Christie Rec Center, which is located in the 18th Police District, was the site of a tragic incident that occurred in March of this year, the shooting and homicide of 16-year-old Kari Simmons. Besides increasing safety measures, it has made several improvements, including new lighting, fencing, and backboards. In addition, under the leadership of Captain Matt Gillespie, the 18th District is currently producing a skills and drills program that runs every Friday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Our officers were very involved in improving the atmosphere around the center and worked with our Parks and Rec Department to outfit the center for video gaming as requested by the youth. As a result of this effort, the PPD will be hosting gaming tournaments beginning in the fall. Stay tuned for the information about the ribbon cutting this month. Also, if you're interested in any of the youth programming available at the Christie Rec Center, please reach out to the 18th District at area code 215-686-3180 or 3181 and ask to speak to the Community Relations Officer. You can also reach out to the Christie Rec Center at 215-685-1997. The 22nd District is also continuing its youth programming. Under the leadership of Captain Nasheed Akil, the Guns Down, Gloves Up program began last year and has seen a lot of success in not only providing the youth with a purpose and a place to engage with others, but these officers have also strengthened their relationships with the youth in their communities. If you're interested in learning more about this opportunity, please reach out to the community relations officers at the 22nd District at 215-686-3220 or 3221. These are just a couple of glimpses into what we're doing, but there are countless programs available through our districts. I encourage anyone who is interested in participating in summer programming to please reach out to your district and speak to your community relations officers. They'll be able to point you in the right direction and let you know what programming is available in your area. In addition to these district-specific efforts, our PAL centers, as mentioned before, under the leadership of under Captain Crystal Dahl Campbell, they're incorporating additional programming, including 3-on-3 basketball tournaments, 7-on-7 flag football, and a youth summit at each location. Additionally, there are sewing classes, cheer camps, basketball, tennis, and golf camps. PAL will also host movie nights for the community. In order to meet the summer need, the hours have been extended at 10 out of our 15 locations, and children ages 6 to 18 are encouraged to sign up. Please visit the PAL website at www.phillypal.org for more information on the PAL Center closest to you. I also want to make the community aware of one more program in which I encourage our youth and our young adults to engage and participate. If you know someone or are interested in a career in law enforcement or even just a little bit curious about it, and if you're between the ages of 14 to 20, our Police Explorers program is actively recruiting. The Police Explorers provide an excellent opportunity to see how you can make a difference as a police officer while also having fun. Please visit the Explorers website at www.ppdexplorers.org to sign up today. Finally, I want to thank the community for their help with some of the cases that we've had in the past few weeks. Sometimes being a good witness can mean all the difference, as was the case in Mr. Wei Lin's murder, who was tragically killed after coming to the aid of one of his workers. Someone on location was able to take a picture of the offender, and through investigation, police were able to identify that individual. Chief Inspector Frank Venor of our Detective Bureau will speak more about that case during his presentation. However, I want to point out that help from our public played a very critical role in securing a quick apprehension. As Deputy Commissioner Joe Dales will elaborate further, we're continually monitoring and analyzing the crime data to ensure that we are deploying the appropriate personnel to hotspots throughout the city.
It looked like she froze.
It looks like the commissioner froze.
I'll take over, Dana, if you want to pull up the
Yeah,
slides.
sure. Can you say?
Yes, okay. Thanks again, Commissioner. I will start with the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats. Looking at the top of the chart year to date as of June 6th of this year, Philadelphia had 889 shootings, and out of the 889, 228 were homicides. In comparison to last year, homicides are up 33%, 228 this year versus 171 last year. And the shootings are up 25%. Out of the 228 homicides, 48 occurred inside a residential building. It's not listed on the chart, but 9 of the homicides occurred inside of a commercial building, which brings the total number of homicides that occurred inside to 57. Looking at the bottom of the chart, the bottom left of the chart, it shows the motives for the homicides. The top 3, again, remain the same. Arguments, drugs, and domestics, which domestics is currently up 144% in comparison to last year. And look at that significant difference, 22 this year versus 9 last year. Next slide, please. This slide shows the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats weekly comparison. If you look at the far right, from 5/31 to 6/6, we had 15 homicides, 40 shooting victims, which include homicides, and 36 shooting occurrences. Shooting occurrences is an incident count where an individual or individuals were shot. So we're basically counting the incidents, not the number of shooting victims. Next slide, please. This slide shows the comparison Okay, there you go. This slide shows the comparison between citywide homicides and homicides that occurred in the pinpoint grids. For those who are watching for the first time, Operation Pinpoint is our overall crime fighting and information sharing strategy that is in alignment with the roadmap for safer communities. Operation Pinpoint is basically a combination of several policing models such as hotspot policing, intelligent-led policing, community-oriented policing, and offender-focused policing. We have over 45 pinpoint grids throughout the city that were identified and established based on data and intelligence that showed high levels of violent crimes within these grids. And if you look at the top of the chart, it shows citywide homicides up 33%. Looking at the bottom part of the chart, it shows pinpoint grids at 0%, which is the same as last year, 81 homicides this year and 81 homicides last year. Next slide, please. This slide shows the comparison between citywide shooting victims and shooting victims in our pinpoint grids. Citywide shooting victims are up 25% and the pinpoint grids are down 12%. 2 weeks ago, the shooting victims in the pinpoint grids were up 2%. So as you can see, we are making progress in our pinpoint grids. Next slide. This slide shows the year-end total VOOF arrests for 2017 through 2020 and the total VOOF arrests year-to-date for 2021 from January 1st to June 6th. And again, for those who are watching this for the first time, VOOFA is an acronym for Violation of Uniforms Firearms Act. So when I mention VOOF arrest, it basically means the person was arrested for illegally possessing a firearm. So in 2020, we reached an all-time high for VOOF arrests that totaled 2,324. And so far this year, we have made 1,281 VOOF arrests. I would like to point out that this time last year, we had 789 VOOF arrests, which is a 62% increase when compared to the year in total for this year. Next slide, please. As of June 7th of this year, 2,651 crime guns were recovered in our city. A crime gun is any gun recovered by the police as part of a criminal investigation. I want to make note that this number does not include guns from buybacks or turn-ins. Last year, we recovered 2,052 crime guns by the end of June. Comparing that number to this year's number year to date, which again is 2,651, we are currently showing a 29% increase, which is 599 more crime guns recovered this year compared to last year. Next slide, please. And lastly, year to date, 260 privately made firearms, which is also known as ghost guns, were recovered in Philadelphia. I would like to point out that in 2020, a total of 250 privately made firearms, which again are ghost guns, were recovered by the end of the year. Not year to date, by the end of the year. That's the total number for the year of 2020. And as of June 7th, we have passed that number. This shows a significant increase in ghost guns being recovered this year in comparison to 2020 and 2019. So those numbers you see from 2019 to 2020, those are the amount of ghost guns we recovered within that year. So as you can see, we recovered more guns, ghost guns, than ever in comparison to the past few years. And with that, I will now pass it over to Chief Inspector Frank Venor, who is the Chief Inspector of the Detective Bureau, who will speak about cases we wish to highlight.
Good afternoon. I am going to highlight about 4 cases today, all senseless violence. 3 of them resulted in homicides within the city in the past week. 2 of them I'm going to be asking for the public's help. I'm going to start today with the case at 522 West Lehigh, the murder of Christina Lugo, a 40-year-old female. As many of you know, but I'll review very briefly, on June 5th, approximately 5:45 a.m., while Ms. Lugo was entering her place of work to open the business up early in the morning, she was met by a male. That male followed her into the store, produced a handgun, and committed a robbery where we believe he took about $300 in that case. Before exiting the store, he fired 1 time, struck her in the head, and she was found dead at that location. The male fled on foot, and detectives very quickly, in processing that scene, recovered the video. Sometime that same day, that video, images from that video were released to the public, and we appreciate the help we got in this case. One of the first calls we received was from Ellesmere, Delaware. Their authorities had claimed that they reviewed our pictures and they had a murder investigation that occurred on 515 at a cell phone store down there in Ellesmere, Delaware. That particular robbery had some of the very same features as our robbery. 28-year-old female inside the store behind the counter. Male produced a gun, fired that weapon, struck her in the head in the course of the robbery, and fled on foot. They had circulated some pictures, very similar height, weight, built. So we began working very closely with Delaware, knowing that we could possibly have a pattern of behavior here. After that incident, on our incident on Saturday, there were approximately 3 other robberies that occur in Delaware. Now, all of this is very active and ongoing, this investigation. Not going to be able to comment much on Delaware's investigation, but what we know now is there were a robbery of a convenience store where a male was shot. There was also a street robbery that occurred where the individual was killed. And then we had a robbery of a Rite Aid in the early morning hours yesterday. That particular robbery led police in Wilmington to an individual I could identify now as Keith Gibson, 39-year-old male. He was taken into custody with proceeds from that robbery in Delaware. He also had a .357 revolver on him. So since that robbery, our Philadelphia Homicide, as well as Wilmington, Ellesmere, have been working together, collecting evidence. Right now, because of the new evidence we have, all that evidence has to be scientifically compared to the evidence we collected at each and every scene. But what we believe now is that we believe Mr. Gibson is the perpetrator at the Lehigh Avenue murder of Miss Lugo. I spoke to the district attorney within the hour. They are in the process of approving a warrant for us for the murder of Christina Lugo in that case. All other cases are being reviewed as we speak. Evidence is being compared. This is a revolver. It's a .357 revolver. We're going to have to compare the bullet that was fired, in which case many of those bullets were in the victim, to the gun. This is very tedious investigation, so that's ongoing. I'm sure we'll have more information to put out as we move forward with this investigation, but we will have charges against Mr. Gibson, and we'll work to extradite him back to Philadelphia at some point once they're completed. The case in Ellesmere, Delaware, they haven't even begun their charging process because he remains in Wilmington at this point. I'm going to move on to the next case that I have. This is a double homicide that occurs on Monday, 3/31 at approximately 12:40 p.m. Police in Philadelphia respond to the 500 block of 16th Street in the 9th Police District, where they find 2 individuals, a Kasim Roberts, 27-year-old male, and Raheem Hightower, 22-year-old male. Both of them were shot. Mr. Hightower was sitting in a Malibu. Mr. Roberts was laying on the highway. Both were pronounced at the scene. This investigation, we had a lot of help from the public. We had video witnesses that came forward right away. That video footage, the detectives worked very, very hard on. We were able to develop a suspect in this case. And at this point, we have a warrant for murder for 2 murders, double homicide, for Karan Bernard Connor. If you want to flip it to the next slide. He is a 26-year-old male. And I want to remind everyone, in this case, he's armed and dangerous. We have a tip line. It's 215-686-8477, or the word tips. You can call 911. There is, in each and every homicide, $20,000 reward put up by the mayor's office for arrest and conviction of the individual. So this case, we still need help with it. We'd like to take him into custody so no one else is hurt. The next case, if you want to move to the next slide, I'm going to have a video with this case. So at some point, if you want to start that video, I'll try to explain. We're going to make this video available to you. But this case occurs. This is a shooting where we're very lucky that the individual survived. In this case, 1394 Cecil B. Moore. What we know is our 29-year-old victim and a friend are inside a restaurant making an order when 5 individuals you're going to see in this video walk into the restaurant and are also in line to place an order. At some point during this incident, an argument ensues between the parties. The individual, who I'll describe at a later point, as suspect number 1 retrieves a firearm from the individual in the orange shirt from his backpack, follows our victim out into the street, and fires multiple times at him. He struck 4 times. SEPTA police, Temple police respond very quickly and transport that victim to Temple University Hospital, where he is now currently in stable condition. This is another case. We have very good video. We feel that someone may know these individuals, and I'll do my best to describe them and what I have. I have suspect number 1 is described as a white male, 5'10", approximately 225. He has a beard, mustache, tattoos on his necks and arms. And at this time during the incident, he's wearing a Marilyn Monroe t-shirt. Suspect number 2 is described as a white male, 5'7", 160 pounds, wearing an orange sweatshirt. And he has an eye basically on the front of it. It's a picture of an eye. He has dark pants on and orange shoes. The third suspect is described as a white male, 5'7", 160 pounds, wearing a light colored clothing, and he also has a visor type hat on. Suspect 4 is a white male, 5'9", 150 pounds. He has a ponytail. He's wearing a gray shirt, and it has "wanted" printed across the front of it over top of it in graphics, and he has dark colored shoes on. And the fifth subject in this case, suspect, is described as a white male, 5'10", 165 pounds, hair's worn in a ponytail, and he has multiple graphics on top of his shirt. So anybody who looks at this video, sees these individuals, may know who they are. We're asking for them to contact our tip line, 215-686-TIPS. And in this case, you could even call our Central Detective Division, which is 215-686-3093. The larger individual with the beard is my shooter in that case. And you'll see at the point in the video that you're looking at now, he takes the gun out of the backpack and follows the individual out and fires over an argument about placement in line, which is just absurd. So we really need the public's help with this one. And if you want to change slide to the very last one, I will review the case that the mayor and the police commissioner referred to in the beginning of the press conference. Back on May 24th, approximately 12 noon, there's an auto accident in our 24th district around 4000 block of L Street in Juniata. That auto accident is believed now to be Wei Lin. It was involved in it along with a female. That female and him exchanged information, and at some point during the course of that, she left the area and he remained behind. And there was numerous witnesses. Police took a report. He remained behind with his vehicle. At some point, the defendant in this case, Jose Figueroa, a 30-year-old male, arrived at the scene, was enraged because at this point, our investigation shows, I think the auto accident was with a relative of his. He got into an argument with Mr. Lin and punched him one time in the head. That caused him to strike his head on the ground, and he was immediately, police were called again. He was taken to Temple Hospital. Approximately 3 days later, he succumbed to his injuries. The district attorney did charge Mr. Figueroa, and he's in custody at this point. That's all I have, and I'll turn things back over to Dina.
Thank you, Chief Fenor. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion. Because of limited time, only one representative from each media outlet is permitted to ask questions. Reporters are asked to limit their questions to 3 or fewer. Today, we're limiting questions in the first round to the presentations, and then if we have time for a second round, we will open up questions to other topics. We also have Armando available for Spanish language translation if needed. First up, we have Jeff Cole with Fox 29. Jeff, you're up.
Yep, for the Chief Inspector, please. Hello, Chief Inspector Van Orr. Can you tell us whether you are working to link Mr. Gibson to the killing of his mother on Ridge Ave a while back?
Yes, so what we know is back January 28th, his mother was found in her place of work. I'm sorry, I had the wrong date. I apologize. 2/8. She was found in her place of work with gunshot wound. At that particular time, homicide detectives had her car parked on the sidewalk. They called the neighborhood for video, including the facility where she worked, and we did not find any other video. There was no fired cartridge casings or other evidence inside the crime scene other than what she had there. She had been there over the course of the weekend. At certain points during the investigation, her son's name did come up. However, we were never able to link him to the murder at that time. We are now working with the DA's office, and like I said, we have a firearm recovered now. So the scientific evidence that we're comparing, we're expecting there could very well be charges in that case sometime today.
Okay. Second question then. A killing in January 2021, 3600 Germantown Ave, 2 men killed in what appeared to be a similar fashion here. Are you interested there, or do you think there's some connection here?
We're looking at it. I'm not able to say at this point what evidence we're able to compare. It's certainly on our list of cases that we're looking at. It's a double homicide, both males shot in the head, no firearm, ballistics left at the scene. I was on that scene. It was chaotic. It was a store just opened, kind of similar to some of the other cases that you see in both in Delaware and Philadelphia. Both males are in the back room. Both males are shot. There's actually a lot of money on location, so I'm not sure if that's a robbery or what it is. So there's questions we have still, and we're working towards seeing if he links to this.
Last question I have for you. At any point, did the Philadelphia police have this man, talk to this man? And can you tell us about what Delaware had in terms of holding him and talking to him during these investigations?
I'm not going to comment what Delaware did. You're going to have to ask them those questions. But at some point during the investigation into the death of his mother, we found out he was on parole. The only thing we could prove at that time is that he was in Philadelphia. Some of the neighbors around Mom's house had seen him. That in itself was a violation of his parole. We contacted Delaware. They were able to get a warrant. 22nd District officers picked him up. We did have him. At that point, we could not link him to the murder, and he was sent back to Delaware in custody and did get out of custody again sometime in March. So between February 17th and March 24th, he gets back out. And I'm not sure after that where he's at.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Next, we have Chris Palmer with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thank you. One quick question. Can you say what he was on parole for in Delaware?
I believe it's public information, but he was involved in a robbery homicide of a commercial establishment in 2008, and he was in custody from 2008 till 2020.
And you mentioned, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you said there was another robbery this weekend after Saturday that he was involved in where he shot and killed someone. Can you say where that was and when?
There's 3 different robberies that Delaware is working to link him on. There's a robbery that occurs on the street on the 6th at around 2:25 in the morning, which would have been really the next day from the robbery at 5th and Lehigh. He encounters a male, we believe they're looking at, a male's encountered by someone on the highway, and he's shot and killed well on the street, and he's robbed during the course of that incident. Same day, 9:15 at night, there's a robbery in Delaware that they're looking at. This individual was shot during the robbery, store clerk. He's still alive, he's in extremely critical condition. So they're still working that case, and I don't know if he links to that or not. I can't comment on that. And the last one is the incident where Wilmington's able to arrest him after the Rite Aid robbery, where shots are fired. I understand a gun is produced, but no one shot in that case.
I'll try and ask 2 quick ones. One, were they all in Wilmington, or were there different places in Delaware? And then 2, do you believe he used the same gun in all of these shootings?
I can't answer that because our forensic people are trying to get that answered. 3 of the ones I described, we believe are in Wilmington, so you'd have to check with them if there are any more. The other robbery that I told you we got a call on that happened May 15th was in Ellesmere, Delaware, which is a different department. I don't believe there's any charges filed in that, but we think he links up to these cases, and that's why we're working with them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next, we have Kristin Johansen with KYW.
Hey, Chief Inspector Nor. One quick question for you. Does he have a history of mental health issues? Do you know?
I don't know that, and I can't comment on that. If I did, I could.
Kristen, you're good? Okay, next we have Isabel Sanchez with Telemundo.
Hello, hi, Armando, ¿cómo estás? Es en referencia a lo que el Chief Inspector acaba de comentar, pero me interesaría en español, por favor. De nuevo, este individuo posiblemente podría haber estado involucrado en la muerte de su madre, que se registró más temprano este año, y también en ese otro incidente del robo en la avenida Germantown, que ocurrió de manera similar. 2 empleados fueron atados y encontrados en la parte de atrás de la tienda.
You're muted. Armando?
Thank you for unmuting me. Isabel, entonces, para recapitular tu pregunta, quieres preguntar sobre el incidente del tirador que aparentemente también agredió a su madre hace más de un año, y luego del robo que se dio en Germantown, donde se dio una modalidad similar en la cual ataron a los 2 empleados en la parte de atrás de la tienda, ¿correcto? Bien, ¿y la pregunta la diriges al alcalde? ¿A quién? A cualquiera. The question that Isabel has for us is in regards to the shooter. In the first case, there's an incident where he apparently shot or harmed his mother about a year ago. And for the second incident in Dunkin' Donuts, apparently there was a theft that took place in Germantown as well, where they went and tied a couple of employees in the back room. What news would you have about that?
The only thing I could say is we're certainly investigating him for these crimes and anything else where we think he fits. I couldn't comment on the incident where the individuals were tied up, but I'll certainly get an answer back to you that we could forward to her.
Ciertamente estamos investigando estos incidentes, estos delitos, para ver dónde encajan, pero no puedo hacer un comentario en estos momentos. Sin embargo, también estamos viendo el caso de los empleados que fueron atados y les vamos a proporcionar una respuesta cuando tengamos nosotros mayor información. Gracias, Isabel.
Okay, next we have Matt Petrillo with CBS 3.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm just wondering about how Wilmington police were able to catch Gibson. Was there any sort of tracking device used? How did that happen?
I'm not positive. I don't have all the details of the Wilmington case. However, a lot of the stores, the pharmacies do employ the GPS device connected to our 911. We do it here in Philadelphia in some cases. So if they did that, and I believe there may have been one, I'm not going to comment on our case. It makes it easier to follow the person to where they went. He went on foot back to a house, and that's where he was apprehended.
Okay, you're good, Matt? All right, next we have our Hennis Figueroa with Univision.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sí, Hennis, buenas tardes.
Cool. Buenas tardes, Armando. Armando, mi primera pregunta va a ser para el alcalde. Ayer tuve la oportunidad de hablar con algunos miembros del consejo y ellos decían que en la discusión del presupuesto varios programas para la lucha contra la violencia que ofrece el alcalde son ortodoxos, no son aplicables a la realidad. ¿Qué puede contestar el alcalde sobre esto, dado que mañana habrá una nueva discusión?
The question is question number 1 for the mayor. Mayor, yesterday I was speaking to some of the city council members who were discussing the upcoming budget, and they were saying that your programs, in order to stem violence in the city, gun violence that is, are orthodox and they're not applicable. Since they're going to be meeting down tomorrow, again, what would you want to say about that?
They said the programs were orthodox or unorthodox.
Orthodox.
I don't know what that means. I mean,
Argenis, ¿y a qué te refieres con que dijeron que los programas de la
Ortodoxos que
son convencionales o
que son programas que no están adaptados a la realidad específicamente de Kensington, donde hay mayor violencia. Ortodoxo quiere decir algo viejo, algo que no está adaptado a la realidad actual.
What they mean by that, Mayor, is that the programs do not fit the reality, specifically in the Kensington area, that they are outdated to an extent.
Well, we believe that we are approaching Kensington. It was a very difficult situation with all the resources that we have available. Unless a specific council person wants to point to a specific program, it's difficult for me to respond. We are doing our best in Kensington, have been doing for quite some time. The situation there is really difficult for everybody, the people who live there and the people who are on the street, and within the law and within constitutionality. We're doing our best to get a grip on the problem, but unless there's a specific council member pointing to a specific program, it's hard for me to comment.
Nosotros creemos que hemos estado haciendo lo mejor posible en el área de Kensington. Es una situación difícil para todos ahí y estamos utilizando todos los recursos a nuestra disposición para resolver ese problema. Pero a menos que puedas mencionarme el nombre de algún miembro del Consejo Municipal específico que haga una crítica a algún programa que nosotros tenemos específicamente, no podría comentar. Estamos, como digo, posible en Kensington. Es una situación difícil para todos los que viven ahí, quienes están en la calle, pero tenemos que obrar dentro de la ley y lo que la Constitución nos permite. Nuevamente, si tienes el nombre de algún miembro del Consejo Municipal o de algún programa que este miembro esté criticando, entonces ahí pudiera comentar con mayor detalle.
Sí, bueno, una de las concejales, y hablo de la parte hispana, es María Quiñones, una de las que está haciendo observaciones sobre ese presupuesto.
¿Y qué es lo que está diciendo sobre algún programa específico o solo
ella dice que está haciendo algunas observaciones, de programas que no están adaptados a la realidad y que mañana seguirán en discusión para tratar de lograr un consenso de que los $100 millones que están en el presupuesto pues sean aplicables a organizaciones que sean directamente comunitarias, que no sean grandes organizaciones para que el dinero no se pierda como se perdió con la compañía. Okay.
Bien. The council person, that is Maria Quiñones, who's discussing the allocation of budget items, and she has some observations to the programs with a commentary that they do not fit the reality of the communities where they're going to be implemented. And she's got some meetings tomorrow to help hold conversations about reaching a consensus about the destination of $100 million that have been allocated or are contemplated to be allocated to these programs in order to have these monies go to community organizations rather than large organizations that may not have a feel for the community, specifically Kensington community.
Well, we're working through the budget process now, along with Councilmember Quiñones Sanchez, and we'll continue having these conversations and come to some consensus, as we do with every budget that we've negotiated for the last 6 years, 5-6 years. So that process is ongoing, and we will finally come to some conclusion, as we always do, and pass the budget.
Quiero recalcar, comunidad, que nosotros estamos trabajando en la confección de ese presupuesto. Es un proceso en el cual hemos involucrado a la Consejería Quiñones, hemos trabajado con ella y estamos trabajando con ella para lograr un consenso en ese presupuesto, teniendo negociaciones como lo hemos hecho los últimos 5 o 6 años. Y esta conversación continúa y vamos a ponerlos al día sobre los resultados y las conclusiones de este trabajo. Gracias.
Armando, ya mi segunda pregunta es para el inspector jefe. Quiero preguntarle específicamente, ayer vi que en el Distrito 39 la policía estaba proveyendo a los pequeños negocios un libro de visita de los oficiales. Esto sería un alivio para que los negocios sientan que tienen un acompañamiento policial, pero mientras hay esta discusión en el Consejo y la Alcaldía, ¿qué acciones concretas están haciendo en este momento para que los residentes y los pequeños dueños de negocios se sientan un poco más tranquilos con respecto a la violencia? Y si puede hacer un comentario sobre el problema que tienen a través del 911, porque las personas nos reportan que tienen problemas en la atención en el 911. No les atienden las llamadas es dificultoso poder comunicarse con el 911.
Muy bien. The second question is for Chief Inspector of the Police. Yesterday, in District 39, some of the stores a logbook to register the presence of police officers in their area as a relief for the situation of the gun violence. In the meanwhile, there's talks with City Council and the Mayor's office. While this is taking place, what message would you have for those residents and small business owners for them to feel confident having a response and a presence to deal with the police issue and response to the violence, the gun violence? And secondarily, there's also comments and feedback about problems reaching the 911 line. People are commenting that it's difficult to get through to them. They're not getting answers. What would you like to say to them in both matters?
I don't know if Deputy Dales would like to take that or if he would want me to answer that.
I got it. I'll take care of that. So in reference to the businesses, continue to and make sure they have a logbook within their businesses, which you just mentioned. I highly recommend that they attend the PSA meetings, the police service area meetings on a monthly basis. Also the captain's town hall meetings. So you be in direct communication with the captain. You can also share with the captain what issues you are experiencing inside and outside your business. So little small things like that does make a difference. In reference to the 911 situation, we are working on that. We have dispatchers in class now. I can't give the number at this point, but we also want to have another class in place in August. So we are working to resolve that issue.
La respuesta que nos da la ciudad es que los negocios debieran mantener estos libros de registro de la presencia y la visita policial para poder mantener una comunicación más fluida con sus autoridades. También hay reuniones que se dan mensualmente de servicio comunitario. También hay reuniones de cabildo abierto que tiene la alcaldía a través de sus funcionarios. Y si tienen algún tema en específico que quisieran ellos, notifiquen, comunicarlo a sus capitanes en el área, tanto problemas que puedan tener dentro de sus negocios o en el área afuera de sus negocios. Con relación al problema que están teniendo algunas personas para contactar al servicio del 911, estamos trabajando en ello. Estamos conscientes de estas dificultades. En estos momentos tenemos una clase que se está dando de despachadores y vamos a tener más clases. Y según tengamos más información, vamos a mejorar este acceso al sistema de reporte al 911. Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ustedes. Es todo, Armando. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Thank you, Hennis. Next, we have Hong Chinese in U.S.
Hi, I have a question for Chief Inspector Frank. I have two questions. One is, do you have the video about the last case you just saw, the Lehigh case? And second question is, do you think it's belong to it's a hate crime?
I'm sorry. I don't know if it's my computer, but I didn't pick up the questions. I apologize. Could you repeat the questions?
The first one is, do you have the video about the last case you just saw, the Lehigh case? Second question is, do you think it's belong to it's a hate crime about the last case you just saw in the?
Was it about the rate? I'm sorry. I'm not.
I want to know whether or not we determine whether the killing of Mr. Wei Lin was a hate crime.
At this point in time, I can tell you that we reviewed all the facts of the case. He was charged, Mr. Figueroa was charged with involuntary manslaughter. At this point, I don't think there were any charges levied by the district attorney that would reflect any ethnic intimidation. However, all that could be amended as it continues to be investigated. It appears that this individual was completely out of control. He was enraged and he punched this individual who was obviously smaller than him. One punch hit his head and then he fled the scene and the individual was fatally struck because he hit his head and then passed away. So at this point, I don't have any evidence to that effect, but we're still looking at the case very closely.
Do you have the video about the case? Video? Do you have the video about the case? Like the video?
The video? Do you mean the video from the incident?
Yeah.
Yes, everything that we have is all part of the case. Some of that video was able to help us identify Mr. Figueroa that arrived at the scene. All that was contemplated during the course of the investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Matt Petrillo with CBS 3.
Hi there. We were working on another story. There was an officer, Burnett. There was an attorney. This might be for the police commissioner. An attorney released some video showing that Officer Burnett had deleted a suspect's cell phone video during an arrest. That suspect's name was Jacob Giddings. I was just seeing if that officer, if he's being disciplined at all, or if there's anything else to that case you wanted to add.
Hi, Matt. Yeah, we are aware of this incident. He's actually been on restricted duty since, I believe, April. But there is an active and ongoing internal affairs investigation right now.
Okay, and is he still on the streets, or is there anything that?
No, he's not on the streets. He's been placed on restricted duty, pending the outcome of the IA investigation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Now we have Lauren Make with NBC.
Hi, good afternoon. This is back regarding the Gibson case again, or potential cases, plural. Chief Figueroa, you had mentioned that Keith Gibson's name did come up as you're investigating the murder of his mother, Christine. Can you say in what way it came up, and are you aware of whether or not she had ever raised concerns about her son and her safety?
Yes, they came up like this. No one put him at the crime scene. We had no evidence that he was there. However, during the course of investigating her, looking back into the family, neighbors, relatives were saying about his history, about his behavior, told us about when he got out of jail. We were able to develop some evidence that he was in Philadelphia, so that's how we violated his parole. But at no time were we able to, all that was very circumstantial. So the district attorney at that point really did not have enough to give us a warrant for murder on Mr. Gibson. So detectives were working up until the end of April, beginning of May, still bringing in witnesses, attempting to see if anyone could put him either at, near that crime scene, find out if he said anything to anybody about the case, and we were not able to put that evidence together. Not at that time.
And I'm sorry, the video was just skipping a little bit there as you're talking. Were you asking for a warrant at that point?
Well, we didn't have enough for a warrant. We had a female decedent who was shot. There was really no evidence there to link to him being there. We had no video evidence. We see her pull up in a car. You only see her get out of the car. There's other people that had access to that building without getting too deep into it. So there was a lot of investigating to do. People on the peripheral were bringing up her son's name, but it was like speculated. So we could have did a lot of work on that, but without having factual evidence to link him to the homicide, it would have been very difficult to give us a warrant. There was really nothing there. It was very circumstantial evidence. Now we have a firearm recovered. We do have some ballistic evidence, obviously, with the bullet that hit his mom. So we're looking to see if we could link him in that way. There's still no charges in that case. And if I erase everything that happened yesterday, I still don't think knowing about her son's history and everything is still not enough to charge. We need the evidence to link up that we recovered yesterday with Wilmington and our investigators.
Okay. And you've gone through a number of cases, including the one in Germantown. How many cases in Philadelphia are you looking at to pretend that you think there may be a link to Keith Gibson?
Incidents themselves, it's really only 3. The incident on Germantown has 2 victims, so it's 4 homicides total. Like I said, we're in the beginning of looking back at that incident. There's a lot that we have to cull. knowing what he looks like now, we'll redo our video search to see there was video of a male walking away. It's very grainy, all covered up, obviously, because we're still in COVID. There was really no identifiers that we could see, but now knowing who he is, we're going to go back and look. We're also going to compare any ballistic evidence in that case to what we have now, and we'll see where we're at. But we're in the beginning stages of linking that up. We're not sure. The other two cases, his mom and the case of 5th and Lehigh, we're pretty confident that some point today, tomorrow, we're going to have warrants approved in those cases.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Next, we have Kristin Johansen with KYW, and this is the last call for questions.
I will not mute myself this time. My apologies. Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner Dulles, this is for the both of you. With the ghost guns, you guys are seeing an increase. Can you tell where they're coming from? And when I say that, I mean if they're coming from either like online delivery or like at one of these gun shows. Like, is there a way to differentiate how they're coming in just with the volume increase from where we are? And you pointed out, Deputy Commissioner, it's pretty alarming.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes ghost guns what they are and what makes them tricky is that it's very difficult to trace exactly where they're coming from, given that you can purchase the separate components of this firearm in more than one location. So it's really tough to say at this point. And, you know, we've been working very closely with the AG's office, as we know, to not only find origins, but, you know, working through them to work with those dealerships and maybe some of the entities that are selling them. But again, remember, selling the components of the ghost guns are not illegal at this time. So it's very, very tough to answer that question, given that the whole nature of the ghost gun itself makes them untraceable.
And the only other follow-up question to that is there a way to tell, I know that there's no marking, but is there a way to tell that a ghost gun or that a bullet from maybe a crime scene shooting homicide came from the same ghost gun, if that makes sense?
We have Director Garvey on the line.
I think he is.
I am here. So basically the answer to that question is absolutely. We are able to, like any other gun, we can trace the actual cartridge cases from a scene, saying that those same shootings were from that same gun. Or if we had a bullet, we can track that. The only thing we cannot do is trace it. So we cannot tell you where the gun was actually purchased. But in terms of the same gun being used in more than one shooting, we can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, great. Seeing no further questions, that will conclude today's briefing. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks on Wednesday, June 23rd. Take care.